Okay, so welcome to week 4. First, we're going to go through and take a look at the second part of the labs that we did last week. We'll go through each of those, Galaxy Zoo and Hubble's Law. And then I'm going to outline something that we're going to be working on for the rest of the term, which is a research project. So we'll start with Galaxy Zoo. So go ahead and download the instructions, and then this links to a data sheet. So this is essentially the data sheet that's the collection of all of the different measurements that each of you made collectively for the Galaxy Zoo Part 1 project. So that's the one where you went through and identified what type of galaxy each one was. So that data sheet looks like, this. So in column A, we have the galaxy's ID 1 through 22 that you were given when you were going through and doing your data collection. This is the total number of classifications, so the total number of people that went through and classified each of those. And out of those, say 12 people, for the very first one, all 12 of them classified it as a spiral. However, for Galaxy 2, 13 people did that one. 6 of them classified it as an elliptical, 3 as a spiral, 4 as a merger, 0 as an artifact. This is the actual name of the galaxy that you were classifying, and this is a link to the image. So if you want to go back and take a look at what that galaxy looked like, you can click this link. Over here, we have what, too far. Over here, we have what the original Galaxy Zoo participants classified it as. So there are roughly 30 to 50 people that classified each one of these galaxies. So for that first one that all 12 of you classified as an elliptical, the 37 people that classified that one in the original Galaxy Zoo also all classified it as a, I think I said elliptical a second ago, spiral. Also all classified it as a spiral. For the second one, where it was much more of a mix, we can see there's a little bit of a mix here as well, but still the majority of the 50 some odd people that classified this one classified it as a spiral. So you're going to use this data sheet, both to take a look at what the original Galaxy Zoo group did and what you as a class did, as well as what you individually did, which is why you collected this on a data sheet to go through and answer our questions. So if you've downloaded those questions, they look like this. So you're going to make sure you have that data sheet, and you'll compare your results, the ones that you wrote down on your classification data sheet, to be able to answer these questions. So some of them are a little bit more, so if you compare your results to what the class got, take a look at the ones where you seem to differ from the majority of the class. Use that to answer these questions. And then you'll start to compare to what the original Galaxy Zoo group did and answer some of these questions. So there's only 2 pages. It should be relatively short. And that's the part 2 of the Galaxy Zoo part of this. The second part of this lab is the Hubble's Law, part 2. All right, so this is what the Hubble's Law part looks like. For this one, again, there's another Google Sheet. This is the results of the class's classification of the galaxy spectra. So once you go through and get a copy or link, open that one, you're going to want to make a copy so that you can go through and do your own data analysis on it. So there's a couple of questions in here, but the important part is that we're going to be using the ZooTools add-on again. So you can check back to one of the earlier videos for the ZooTools video where we went through and talked about the scatter plot. You're going to be utilizing the scatter plot again, and these links take you to a document that the overall ZooTools guide if you need a reminder on using any of the functions within ZooTools. But this is the overall ZooTools guide. So again, if you need a reminder on how to go through and utilize the scatter plot in ZooTools or any of the other functions within ZooTools, click these links and it'll take you through there. So we went through and utilized this when we were doing our latitude and longitude activity back at the beginning of the term. So you're going to go through and make a few different ones of these, comparing different items within the spreadsheet. So lambda, air, and distance spreadsheet from the Hubble's Law activity. So this is the galaxy ID column for the spectra that you looked at. This is the RA and DEC of that galaxy. So this is like longitude and latitude, but on the sky. So essentially these two give you the position on the sky for where that galaxy was located. This is how far away from the galaxy, from us, the galaxy is. This is the average wavelength that you all clicked on. So again, in that activity, you were going through and trying to identify which one was the calcium doublet absorption lines. And you are looking particularly at the K line, which was the one that was on the left. So this is the average wavelength that people clicked. And then once we account for all the different people that went through and did this, this is the error on those. So for example, some of these have very small error, which means the spectra was probably pretty good and it was probably pretty easy to go through and figure out which one it is. Whereas this one right here has a very large error, still relatively small compared to the wavelengths, but a much larger error than the others. So this is probably a noisier spectra where it was harder for you collectively to go through and figure out which one was the absorption line. This is how fast the galaxy is moving away from us. And redshift is another measure of how fast it's moving away from us. And lastly, if you want to go through and see it again, you can go through and click the URL here. So we're going to utilize all of these pieces to go through, make the scatter plots so you can get an idea of what's going on here. So this one is the error on the wavelength that you measured versus the distance, velocity versus distance. You're going to go through and add a trend line to your plot. And again, this link will click you to some instructions on how to go through and do this. So this is going to be a linear trend line, meaning it's just going to be a line. So you're going to be able, in order to answer some of these questions, we need to remember the overall equation for a line back from your math classes. So if x is what's going on the x-axis and y is going on the y-axis, the m here that multiplies the x, that's your slope. And then B is where that line intersects the y-axis. And again, you can go through and click in here to see some instructions on how to go through and do that within the ZooTools system. Lastly, to finish up this one, we're going to ask some questions to essentially compare what you found out to what was currently accepted, and you can link to that currently accepted value right here and answer some final questions about this. So that's the second part of Hubble's Law. And again, if you've got any questions, go ahead and pop them into the chat. And once we're done here, I'll go through and double check those links and see what's going on. So the last thing that I want to go through and highlight is essentially your second lab, but it's actually the first part of a longer project. So many of the remaining labs that we're going to do in class are going to be milestones in a research project. So you will have a milestone due every week from now on until the end of the term. So essentially the research project has been divided out where you have various check-ins with me as you go through and progress. The full instructions are listed here. So you can always look ahead and see what needs to be done into the future. And then you will have various things due each week, which you'll want to go through and complete. So this week is going to be milestone 1, and I'll go through and open up the instructions in just a minute. Before you go through and complete milestone 1, read through these instructions and watch this short video. But if we scroll down, I've already included the future milestones for each week. So if you and your group, because this is a group project, although if you really want to work individually, that's okay, can work ahead, and these are open for you to go ahead and do everything except for the very last week. That one I need people to submit their videos first. And again, you can read all about the different parts of it within the student instructions here. The groups are not assigned. You can pick who you want to work with. So I would recommend utilizing Slack. I'll make sure that everyone is still a part of, the lab channel. So that's a good place to go through and contact people. And you can have up to 4 students in a group. So there are multiple, this is a long document. And once it loads, we'll be able to go through and navigate through each of the pieces. So in order to find who you might want to work with, yes, I absolutely recommend posting on Slack to see if people are open to working in a group. I think that's probably the best idea since you can't actually see each other face to face. All right, so a very short overview. Essentially, you're going to utilize the Galaxy Zoo data set to create your own research question and hypothesis, go through and carry out the data analysis, interpret your results, and reflect upon it. So the end product is going to be a 4-minute video summarizing your group experience. Now, as I said, there's multiple milestones through here, so I can sort of check on your process and provide feedback. All of that stuff. So the very first one, the milestone that'll be due for this week is the guided research activity. And just to show you some things, here's essentially what'll be due each week moving forward. So the 5th thing that's not posted yet is you're going to peer review other groups' videos. And I can't post that until you all have submitted the videos. So that one will show up the very last week. And it'll be but the rubric and all of that for you to go through and peer review them. Will be, actually you can see it within this document. So there is a lot of information that you should read through before you do your guided research activity in this introduction to Galaxy Zoo. So it'll give you more information about some of the items that you'll be able to find in the Galaxy Zoo dataset and how to access it. Talks a little bit more about the Galaxy classification, some of which you've already done. It talks about how the crowdsourcing works, and there's more information in this link if you want to go through and do that. And then it starts talking a little bit more about some of the science and what they were able to get out of Galaxy Zoo, what the different parameters they've measured are. And there's also a lot of external resources if you want to go search and learn more about some of this stuff as well. So to the actual items that you're going to do, again, this week is the guided research activity. So the Galaxy Zoo data sheet is linked here. You'll again want to make your own copy because that way you don't modify anyone else's. And you're going to go through and calculate a few items so you can start to get a feel for what's going on in here. And there are some questions that you're going to answer at the end. So once you go through and make some calculations, this is going to walk you through some of the ways to visualize your data using things like histograms, like what we did in the original Zoo Tools activity. And then there is an actual assignment submission that you're going to want to go through and do. So if we head back to Canvas, the actual questions that you will answer for this are inside of here. Okay, so again, all of the stuff we were just talking about is linked up at the top as a reminder. The submission questions are first and foremost who you're going to be working with so that I know. And if you're going to work by yourself, then just say so. You're going to give me a copy of your Google Sheet that you are using to do your data analysis. When you get to when you're done and you've got your data sheet, click share. And then you're going to want to make sure that you set it so that anyone with the link can view, and then copy the URL in there. So that way, when I click on it, I'll be able to see your data. And then you're going to answer these few questions based on the results from your data sheet. The end result is essentially going to be, what is your research question? And well, no, so let me step back. So the end result is going to be thinking about some of these questions as if they were a research question. and how you sort of came to what you were thinking. So this is supposed to be modeling what you might do as your research project. So there was a question about whether or not you can use Excel instead. I need to be able to see it, and you need to be able to share with your group members. So Google Sheets is much better in terms of sharing with your group. Trying to go back and forth between Excel and Google Sheets often introduces errors. So, and because Excel does not share as well, I would not recommend it. If you're working individually, then that's less of an issue, but you still need to find a way to share it with me so that I can go through and see things. Essentially, most of what you can do in Excel, you can do in Google Sheets. Sometimes they're just in slightly different places. So this is what you'll go through and do for milestone 1. Milestone 2 is essentially, now you're going to have some time to go through and start thinking about what it is that you want to do as part of your research project. So there's some very minor constraints. Essentially, you have to use the same data that was used in the intro activity. That way you're all utilizing the same data sets. And then there are various rubrics so you can see what constitutes a good research question. There's some like check yes or no in there so you can get an idea if what you're proposing sounds like a good idea. So for milestone 2, you're essentially going to submit, again, the names of who's in your research group, what your research question or questions, if you want to do more than one, are, and then your initial hypotheses. So this will be due not for this week, but for the following week. The third milestone is you're actually, now that you have a question, you're going to start creating some key plots, so some key visualizations. Some of them will be ones that you've created based on the Galaxy Zoo dataset itself. Some of them will be ones that you'll have identified from outside sources to essentially help support or explain what your research question is about. There are various different specific guidelines in terms of like adding captions that make sense. There is an example slide set with a few slides to show you sort of some format and structure. You don't necessarily have to do everything and make it exactly like that, but it gives you an idea of the types of information to go through and include in there. So milestone 3 is all about the key plots. And this is the rubric for the good research questions that I mentioned earlier. Milestone 4 is going to be making your video. So the idea of each of these milestones is that once you submit your research question, then I can provide some feedback for you. You use that feedback, you go and make your key plots, you share those with me, I provide feedback again, you use that to then make your video, since many of those key plots will be utilized in your video. So your video, and here are some specific things that need to be in that video. Again, 4 minutes. Since this is going to be all for your classmates, they're the ones that are going to be viewing it. You don't have to explain what the Galaxy Zoo project is, or what galaxies are, or how to determine galaxy color, because you'll all have done that. But you do need to explain what you've learned, what you're trying to do, all of that type of stuff. And then again, there's a reflective piece as well. If you are not sure how you want to go through and record this video, you can utilize whatever you want, but one simple solution would be Screencast-O-Matic. It's free, and I think I've now set it up so that it links directly from Canvas. Many faculty right now are using that, and they switched to online, so you may or may not be familiar with it. But of course, you can utilize whatever you want. For this milestone, milestone 4, you're going to submit your research video either as a video file of something that hopefully I can play, and I'll let you know if there's any problems, or if you want to upload it to something like YouTube or something else that has a URL associated with it, maybe use Dropbox and you know how to make a URL for a file that way, you can submit the URL as long as I can still access it, because I need to be able to download it. So if you do put it on YouTube, you need to set it so that it is downloadable by others. I don't think that that is a normal sort of setting in YouTube. So you're going to have to dig around and find that if you decide you want to use that. So then I will collect all the videos that are submitted together, make the peer review assignments, and that'll be done during finals week. So that is the whole guidelines in term. So you know how you'll be graded for the final video. Down here at the bottom, there is a video rubric. So this is not only what you will use to grade, it's also what I will go through and use to grade the videos. And everyone does need to go through and do the 2 peer reviews. So there's, oh no, I guess that's just the one sheet. And these should already be posted in Canvas as the rubric for the videos. So you can see that that's what we'll go through and use for the project. So again, this is spread out over many weeks to hopefully give you lots of time. But if you and your group are proactive and want to start working quickly, then you have everything you need to go through and do that, again, except for the final peer review piece of it. So we will have another lab each week in addition to this. For example, this week it's the second parts of the Galaxy Zoo and Hubble's Law. So there'll be another one in addition for each of the remaining weeks until we finish sky motion, lunar phases, and exoplanets, if I'm not mistaken. But this is something that you can go ahead and work ahead on relatively easily.